take some rice and you slowly cook it in a peppery tomato-based sauce. And then you serve it with either stew, chicken, or vegetables. That, in essence, is what jollof rice really is. And it's huge, especially in West African cuisine. I mean, it seems like almost every region has their own version of jollof rice. But that's where the beauty of this dish really lies, where the base is just so good, it's almost tempting to add your own version of it. Change up the spice mix, introduce new techniques. And that, my friends, is why there are so many different versions of jollof rice in West Africa. Now first, I gotta say, the debate between which country produces the best jollof rice is highly controversial. Some say Ghana produces the best jollof rice, others say the Nigerians take the cake. But a country that really slips underneath the radar is Cameroon, and that's the kind of jollof rice we're gonna discuss in this video. Like you see, over the course of a few months, my group and I have been extensively researching Cameroonian jollof rice recipes in order to create our own. We've taken inspiration from numerous different recipes in developing our own recipe. So first things first, let's build the base of this dish, which is the sauce. I took a large bell pepper and I just hacked it down into manageable chunks. You don't need to finely dice it because it's ultimately going to get blended up with everything else. The whole purpose of the pepper is to add flavor, as well as that red color. And speaking of red, it wouldn't be a tomato-based sauce without the tomatoes. So I chopped up a bunch of those and added it all to a blender. But just before I turned it on, I tossed in 1 habanero pepper. Now traditionally you would use a Scotch bonnet pepper, but I couldn't find that at Kroger. But hey look, the habanero is a pretty direct cousin of the Scotch bonnet pepper, except it's a little less hot, so it's good for the white people. Anyways, I blended it all up and then boom, there's your sauce. In the meantime, add a pan with oil on medium heat. I diced up some onions, and then instead of cooking them until translucent, Afon suggested I caramelize them instead. In fact, I'll let him explain that.
The whole purpose of caramelizing the onions is to add a contrast of sweetness to the spiciness of the tomato sauce. When cooking, it's best to do it on low heat and occasionally deglaze with a splash of water.
After the onions were softened up, it was time to add the tomato paste, and I just stirred it all in until it started getting nice and fragrant. And then I added the tomato sauce. Okay, now it's really time to spice up the base before we add the rice in. I added a bit of thyme in there because it goes fantastic with tomatoes, as well as some dried basil and oregano. I threw in a few stock cubes as well as a few bay leaves. Of course you gotta add your salt and pepper, but just taste as you go to make sure the acidity of the tomatoes isn't overpowering the dish. In my case it was, so I added a pinch of sugar, which really helped to balance the acidity. Now let that settle for a bit and we can get to our rice, the star of the dish. In Ghana, it's argued that the perfect rice to use in jollof is basmati, which is a really flowy type of rice and it gives extra flavor. In Nigeria, it's suggested to use long grain rice because it's best at absorbing flavor. Hell, even the Senegalese go in a completely opposite direction and use short grain rice in their jollof. This is the kind of rice that they use in Cameroon. Parboiled rice. But what is parboiled rice? Well, parboiled rice is just rice that has just been pre-boiled while it's in the husk. And it's that kind of rice that allows itself to cook separately and not like clump up when you're cooking it. Anyways, all I did was rinse it a couple of times until it ran clear, and I threw that in the pot. Now normally you would add water next to begin the cooking process, but Holland, one of our recipe developers, suggested we just add chicken stock in it to like enhance the flavor. Anyways, now it's best to turn the heat to low and then cover and simmer until the liquid evaporates. Now while that's simmering, let's work on the chicken. I took about 4 chicken thighs and I marinated them in salt and smoked paprika. Now the reason for the paprika is because there's going to be a lack of smokiness in this dish because we're not really cooking it in like over fire. So the smoked paprika really adds a depth of flavor to it. Anyways, I fried them on medium heat, skin side down, for about 4 minutes, and then I flipped it over to reveal the crispy skin. I threw in a pat of butter and some garlic and just started basting it until it all fully cooked together. Checking back on the rice, it was clear the liquid was gone. But another technique that was suggested to me by Matt was to add the mixed vegetables at the very end to keep the vibrancy of the colors. In fact, I used that same technique and I cut up a bunch of cloves of garlic until it was like a fine paste, and I added that at the end to preserve its pungency. Because cooking really takes out the bite out of garlic. So to keep the flavors of the garlic fresh, I added it in at the very end. Anyways, now all you have to do is serve everything and then boom, Cameroonian jollof rice. Nigeria's better.
Oh, we're gonna get an F.